Hi, I'm Peter and welcome back to History and Saber, the channel where I talk about HEMA, history and swords. Today I'm very happy to be taking a first look at the SIGI Saber Pro that you can see right here in my hand. And the way this video is going to go, firstly, we're going to be looking at the saber itself, so stats, handling, construction, all that kind of stuff. And secondly, we're going to be looking at what this is supposed to be and what it is in relation to the stats. And thirdly, in the end, we're going to be looking at the alternatives on the market that are out there today. And yeah, if it's worth it and what alternatives you might want to consider as well. So let's get right into it. Now, SIGI Forge offer 3 different saber models at the moment. The SIGI Basic, which has a basic simple crossguard reminiscent of the Polish-Hungarian earlier saber types. The SIGI Bow has a simple crossguard and is reminiscent of the later Hussar sabres, the Polish Hussar sabres of the 17th and 18th centuries. And this, the SIGI Pro, very much looks like a very late 19th, early 20th century gymnasium training sword. So you've got different eras, but honestly, the blades are interchangeable, all the parts are interchangeable, according to SIGI. And this kind of makes it more like a visual aesthetic thing in my view. So of course the hilt will add weight and whatnot, but they are functionally very similar swords and represent different time periods of saber fencing, which is of course cool. If you do a different system than late 19th century fencing, you want the different look, which is absolutely fine. And it's great that SIGI provides that. Now onto the sword itself. So as always, I'm working my way from the guard to the rest of the hilt and up the blade. So first off, the guard. We have a symmetrical bowl guard, which is great if you're a left-hander, for example. So it's ambidextrous and it shouldn't affect balance or grip, strength or protection on either side of the hilt, which is great. And I don't think there's any reason a modern bowl-hilted training saber should not be ambidextrous. So that's that, and that is great. Now, what is also great about it, SIGI specifies that on their website, all the metal parts on this sword are heat treated and should withstand a lot of abuse, which is also great. A heat-treated guard and backstrap is basically all you can ask for in a training saber and is always welcome. What I also like about it is the thickened edges here on the guard itself, which is also very conducive to longevity. And I also always like to see that, those rolled edges on a guard. Now, looking at the backstrap, which is really a visual highlight of this sword, as you can see, this is pretty much where you can see that this saber is basically visually based on originals. It has the checkered part where you put the thumb on the back. It has a ferrule like many antique swords that you can see here, which keeps the whole hilt construction together very tightly, also very pleasing and historical looking. And also the pommel here, or rather the end piece of the backstrap, which ends in the blade, which is threaded via this nut. And yeah, it all looks very nice and thought out. And for comparison, I can show you this antique British sword that I have. You can see the checkered back piece, and the overall appearance is very similar and based on historical examples. Now the grip itself is leather, as you can see, and it's got this nice wire wrap that's also inspired by historical saber hilts and is also very nice in the hand. It's not necessary, they will do it without, but for a small fee you can have that, and I think it looks perfect. Also, the green leather is a treat to look at. Now moving up the blade, as you can see, it has a rather strongly curved blade. Now there are 2 curvature variants. This is the more strongly curved version at 4.6 centimeters. I just measured it at the deepest point, so the curve is about 4.5 centimeters deep. And they're also making a blade model that is only slightly curved, which will be the more popular blade type on this hilt, I think, but more on that later. So the blade itself is fullered, as you can see, which is also an extra that you'll pay a little bit for, but I think it's always worth it. The best couple of euros you're going to spend on this sword, on a sword like this. So moving up towards the tip, as you can see. Now the tip is spatulated. I think you can see that quite well on camera here. And it's not rolled, which is the more modern way to do HEMA training tips, I think. So people have been quite critical of rolled tips over the years, and spatulated is definitely the state-of-the-art way to do it. And it has a spatulated tip, so that is great as well. So overall, we have a very nicely put together sword, and I definitely think that construction, fit and finish is definitely worth it. And the fact that it's threaded and blade can be replaced and also can be bought separately is also a nice touch for sabers, and I think makes the whole sword quite future-proof, if you will. One more word on blade length. SIGI specifies 86 centimeters on their website, and the strongly curved blade here is about 84.5. But given that a curved blade has a little bit less reach, I think this is still within range and is not a problem at all. Also, another word about grip length. They specify 14 centimeters. I always measure my grips on the inside, so I really know how much space I've got in there. And this one is just under 13 centimeters, so I don't know if they measured it on the side of the back strap towards the pommel or on the inside, but this example on the inside is just under 13 centimeters, so just so you know. Now about the weight and point of balance on this saber. The weight is 789 grams, which is sort of a middle of the road weight for modern HEMA swords or sabers that are on the market right now. And regarding points of balance, I'll quickly measure that on camera if you will give me just a second. Yeah, which is about 12.5 centimeters from the guard, which is also in range of what SIGI specifies on their website. They say it's 12 to 13.5, and this one is about 12.5 centimeters. So that's fine and perfectly okay. Now on to gloves. I've got the almighty Red Dragons. These are around 7 years old now, so that's how they look as well. No problem at all. As you can see, I can put my Red Dragon gloves in there with no problem at all. And I've even got a little bit of space left on the sides, and it's really not a problem at all. The Red Dragons will fit this saber very well, and given that you have a lot of protection on the sides here, I think it is perfectly fine to use Red Dragon gloves with this sword. Now on their website they say the hilt is meant for lighter gloves. I don't think the Red Dragon is a light glove per se, but personally I wouldn't use it with anything less. I know some people do that, but yeah, you know, wrist and back of the hand and pinky and all that kind of stuff is not as well protected with even lighter gloves, so I think Red Dragons as a minimum is always a good idea, and they fit this hilt beautifully. Now, the only other glove I own and have here at the moment is the old SPES Heavy, which, as you can see here, will absolutely not fit in there. There's absolutely no chance you're gonna get in there with the SPES Heavies, but there's all kinds of medium-sized or medium protection level gloves out there right now, which should fit this hilt, and the Red Dragon is absolutely no problem. Okay, so handling. The grip is very nice, and I think it has the perfect thickness. It's not too thin, it's not too thick. Of course, that's very subjective, but I think it's a perfect middle of the road grip, thickness and girth, so no complaints there. The back strap, the checkered piece here is very nice. I love checkered pieces like back pieces like that. Whether you're wearing no gloves or light gloves or Red Dragons for sparring, this will be a nice addition on your saber. Love that. And also I really like that they've gone the historical route of including a kick out at the bottom for your pinky and your ring finger, because this really is how sabers were done historically, and it's a very comfortable shape for gaining purchase with your pinky and ring finger. And yeah, I love that they've done that here. Now blade-wise, personally I would have gone with a less curved blade, the less curved version of this blade for a later period training saber, which this is trying to replicate, because it's just more conducive to the way these sabers were used in the late 19th century and early 20th century. So yeah, I think handling-wise, you really do notice the stronger curve, which is nice. And my clubmate who owns this saber, thanks again for borrowing it to me, wanted a strongly curved blade for saber fencing in general. And I respect his decision, but personally, for this type of saber, I would have definitely chosen the slightly curved version. Nevertheless, it handles fine, and I do think this will make a lot of people happy in terms of handling, because it is, again, a middle-of-the-road solution for a modern HEMA training saber that will make a lot of people happy, and it's definitely lighter than some of the sabers that came out a few years ago, but it is also not the lightest of sabers, which some people, again, might want, but more on that later in the last part of this video, where I'm going to be talking about alternatives and the market situation overall. Okay, so what is this sword trying to represent? SIGI says on their website that this is based on late 19th century British training swords, which is true, looking at the overall appearance and the design cues, such as the backstrap, overall shape of the hilt and grip, and also the very protective hilt of this shape, is very typical of the 1895 pattern British gymnasium sword, which came along with the 1895 infantry sword exercise by Masiello, and this manual basically was from 1895 on the infantry sword exercise of the British Army, an Italian system, and this is basically the sword that went with it. Of course, not only the British used swords like this, but also traditions that Italian traditions at the time were also using similar swords on the continent and elsewhere. So this is basically where this type of sword appears. And I looked up on Matt Easton's website an article about the 1864, which preceded it, and he measured an 1895 as well in that article, and that was 830 grams. So this here is actually a good bit lighter than one of the originals that Matt Easton measured, and also the blade is basically the same length. So it is fair to say that this represents a late 19th century, early 20th century gymnasium saber of the Italian style. And this is where it gets a bit controversial. Sometimes many people doing later saber traditions, Italian, French, whatnot, what have you. And this is something that is a general product for the general HEMA saber people, I think, because some people doing later saber, Italian saber, Barbasetti, stuff like that, do want even lighter sabers. Again, this is 789 grams, and some Italian saber systems like to use sabers closer to 700, sometimes even below. There's a really nice table, I'll link the website down below, of the different specs and stats of sabers according to their manuals, which somebody put together, so all credit goes to them. Link in the description down below, which is very interesting to look at. But again, the British 1895 was a lot heavier, at least that one example that Matt Easton measured. So I think this is a great saber for general purpose HEMA saber fencing. Okay, so where does the SIGI Saber Pro sit in today's HEMA saber landscape? And I really see only a few contenders when it comes to bowl-hilted modern HEMA training sabers. So we have Krieger Historical Weapons with their S2 HEMA saber from Poland. We have Wregeny Armory from Hungary with their light and dualist models. And of course, we've got Kvetten, now based in Georgia, with their Eastern Mark III and their more recently introduced 1895 saber. So these are, I would say, the main contenders, and I'll compare them a bit right now. So price-wise, the SIGI is the most expensive one, with a base price starting at 330 euros at the time of making this video, so mid-2023. And just below that is Wregeny Armory and Kvetten with 290 euros for their two models that I just mentioned. And on the lower end, price-wise, is Krieger Historical Weapons, which is a bit cheaper at about 215, 220 euros. Now, quality-wise, I think SIGI is well up there. It has tempered parts all around the saber, and construction quality at SIGI is fantastic in my view. I also really like Kvetten Armory for their quality, and I think the saber models that they make are quite comparable to SIGI. So I don't think there's a clear winner. And on the lower end, we have Krieger Historical Weapons, which is really good for what they make, but fit and finish and also the rolled edges and stuff is not something they offer as a standard right now with their S2 HEMA saber. Then again, if you prefer a lighter saber, the Krieger is really good. It handles beautifully. It's about 740 grams, the example that I measured, and it's really lovely in the hand. So if you want to spend a little less, if you're looking for a lighter saber, the Krieger is really, really nice, and I would recommend that. Now again, the Kvetten Eastern Mark III represents an earlier type of British gymnasium saber, which is a bit heavier. It's a great sword, I think, and it's not great for later Italian-based saber systems. Now the 1895 is an interesting example. I've never held one, I've never even seen one in person by Kvetten. They introduced it with 850 grams, and they kind of instantly got a lot of criticism for the weight of their saber. Again, I said the 1895 measured by Matt Easton is about 830, so the Kvetten 1895 at 855 is quite a lot heavier than that. Now, I just looked up their website and they are listing it now at 750 grams, which is quite interesting. I don't know what they changed, maybe the blade. I don't know, I've never seen one, but now it's very close to this. So the shape is basically identical and it's a bit lighter even than this. So it's worth a look if you want to order from Georgia. And I think it's a close contender to this one. No personal experience with that though. Again, we have Regenier Armory, which I didn't really used to recommend for the past couple of years. And now they have a model called the Regenier Light, which is also 290 euros. Of course, modern Regenier sabers are and have been for years quite simplistic in their construction. They do not have the kick out here, they do not have a backstrap. I don't really like how the grip works and feels. Yeah, I'm really not a fan of that personally, but it's a functional saber. We have a few at the club, so the light is about 720 grams, which is a bit lighter and maybe more conducive to what you want to do for later period saber. And I actually like fencing with it. My friend Max, who you've seen on the channel numerous times, he has a Regenier Light, and I actually really like that saber. Now Regenier, they also make an even lighter saber. At below 700 grams, 680 is what they specify on the website. It's called a Dualist, which is a light saber, and I really, really like that one. I tried it a couple of years ago when it first came out. Two clubmates of mine have got that one, and I do recommend that one as well for later period fencing systems that require lighter sabers. So go out and buy that. I do recommend it. Now, again, we have the SIGI, and I think it is a really good option for general purpose HEMA fencing. I think this can do everything. It offers great protection, it offers great construction and finishing, and with the two different curvatures that they offer, it is basically the universal HEMA training saber right now, I think. Now again, I don't own one, this is not mine, but belongs to a clubmate who paid with his own money for this saber. I really think this is a really great universal HEMA sword. No matter if you do, British Victorian saber fencing, or later Austro-Hungarian, or maybe French, or maybe Italian saber fencing of the later 19th century, the second half, or even going into the 20th. I think this becomes a bit cumbersome for that, but overall, I think this can do everything, and that's no mean feat if you ask me. The main rival for later period saber fencing is really the Regeniers, and I think this can do pretty much everything in regards to HEMA saber fencing. So make of that what you will. I hope I was able to give you a quick overview of the market, and I think regarding bowl-hilted training sabers, this is a great choice and I would recommend it. Now, if you like this video, please like and subscribe to my channel. If you haven't, I'd appreciate that. And on that note, see you in the next video. Bye bye.